Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 68 of Fraternity Foodie. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health, an extremely important conversation at all times, but especially now as people are in quarantine and larger numbers of colleges and universities are starting to move to a virtual education model. This, of course, is going to prevent much of the normal interaction that we would typically see on college campuses pre-COVID-19. Greg Vogt is one of the newest speakers at Greek University. He's already been speaking for Active Minds, and now he's looking forward to sharing his story with your fraternity and sorority community as well. In his raw and transformational speeches, Greg unfolds his journey from living a typical childhood to battling depression, suicide attempts, and spending a year in a mental health treatment center. He's got a story of personal recovery and healing, and he had faced some unexpected external obstacles when he experiences the tragic loss of his favorite high school teacher by suicide, and then of one of his best college friends in a car accident. Greg graduated from the University of Arizona in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in marketing and entrepreneurship. During his time as a student, Greg spent nearly 2.5 years writing and publishing a book. This self-help memoir, it's called The Battle Against Yourself, was written with the mission to help students who are struggling to find hope, identity, and fulfillment. So, welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I'm excited to do this podcast with you and just be a new member of the Greek U family. I'm really looking forward to the road ahead.
Yeah, we love having you on the Greek U family. It's just unbelievable to me because you and I, we had lunch out in California 2 years ago. I still remember the whole conversation at lunch, and you handed me this book that you had written. And on the plane ride home, I'm reading the book. I'm like, this is an incredible story. And I remember saying to you, I said, you know what? We'll see how all of this works out. It could be that we're going to join forces at some point in the future. And here we are at Greek University 2 years later.
Here we are, man. Full circle, 2 years. It's just crazy. It's an honor. And I remember that conversation like yesterday. It was in Costa Mesa, and truly full circle. So I'm pumped to be in touch with you. Grateful for our relationship, and excited to join the rest of the speakers on your team.
That's awesome. It's great to have you. So let's talk a little bit about your background. I want to make sure our audience knows a little bit about you. And the truth is, you went through some real difficulties in high school. You had a strong desire. You wanted to be a varsity basketball player. And unfortunately, it just didn't turn out the way that you wanted, as I'm sure that happens with so many people in so many different areas. But you also experienced some verbal bullying. You had some hardships, I know, with some romantic relationships at that time. And you started to experience feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, and stress. And the depression had you feeling alone and lost at that particular time. You attempted to take your life on 2 different occasions. And then you heard this news that you were going to be sent to a residential treatment center where you spent a year of time. So how was that turn of events, going to this residential treatment center? How was that really a blessing for you in disguise?
Sure thing. Yeah. It was quite a 3-year journey there. I like to describe it as rock bottom, because that's essentially what it was. Coming off of the depression, the suicide attempts, and 3 stays at local mental hospitals before the year-long stay at the treatment center. It was a battle each and every day to just wake up and smile, among many other things. And I didn't like who I was. I didn't like where my life was heading. And I was essentially just conquered by depression. But all in all, I was, to your point, I was sent away to this residential treatment center out of state, essentially just knowing nothing, not knowing what to expect. And though it was quite a challenging and pressing experience, it was a much needed one. Those 12 months were pretty transformational. I had tremendous resources, people who poured into me, therapists, teachers, sports coaches, mentors, all at this facility, this treatment center, who wanted to invest into my life. And that's kind of sort of where I had like this like wake up moment, this aha moment that one, there is so much capability and possibility in life to sort of get where I wanted to be and get back on track. And two, I understood that one of those routes was prioritizing my mental health because my mental health was not, it was suffering and I didn't know what to do to get it back on track. So from accountability to learning what vulnerability means and sharing honestly, to building real relationships, so on and so forth. I mean, the list is extensive. Uh, I like to say that, you know, rock bottom, I think it can be one of the biggest fears in people, but I also think it's the single greatest point of realization, of clarity, um, and the single greatest point where pivotal moments can be had to redirect our path. And that's what happened to me. I'm not sure if it happens to everybody, but that's what happened to me because it smacked me in the face. So to your point, my rock bottom, my worst times were my greatest opportunity to change.
Wow, that is just an incredible, incredible story. And boy, did you make a comeback. I mean, despite all of the doubts of your future and the questions of whether or not you could thrive academically, at that point, you decided to attend the University of Arizona. So, what made you believe that the University of Arizona was going to be the right place for you at that time?
Couple things. So, first of all, my father, he was actually pretty much the only person in my circle who believed that I should go to a 4-year university. Not close family members, not distant family members, not friends, not academic advisors. Nobody else. Everybody was advising my parents, "Hey, this kid's not ready yet. Yes, he's like done better, but he's not ready for 4-year university. He's not ready to go out of state. He doesn't have the mental capacity to handle the stressors. He's not ready. Don't do it." And my dad's like, not so fast. I know he struggled, but I see something there. I see an opportunity. And that's all it took is one voice, one person, one perspective to pour into me and give me a little glimpse of hope because I doubted myself. I kind of ran with those assumptions like, well, maybe I'm not ready and that's fine, you know? Maybe that's all I should settle for. But he pushed me, and specifically the University of Arizona. We applied to, or I applied to multiple different colleges. The University of Arizona was one choice because it was out of state, but it was not too far. Not like we're going to the East Coast or the middle of the country. It's still kind of within realm of California where I'm from, and so we took a visit not too long before getting accepted. I loved it. I love the college campus. I love the sports. I love the small town feel, like the college atmosphere, but yeah, just such a prominent university and just the opportunities from just meeting new people, kind of getting away from the hometown a little bit, the weather. There was not one thing that turned me off. And so despite some of those insecurities and fears, we took the leap. And you know, it wasn't a flawless experience, especially in the beginning, but it was one that I certainly don't regret. It was one of just great times, great friends, and just achievement in a lot of different areas. So it was awesome.
That is just an incredible, incredible story as well. And it seems like your dad's belief in you is all that you needed to be able to have confidence that you could actually do this, right? And I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
just such an important lesson.
thank you. Yep, I couldn't agree more.
Wow, that's just incredible. So I know being a member of Kappa Alpha Order is also a very important piece of your life. So why has KA been so important to you?
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that. I went to college not knowing the difference between a fraternity and a sorority. Like the definition, I literally did not know that, you know, generally fraternities were for males and sororities were for females. I did not know that. That's how removed I was from the Greek life world and mentality.
Mhm.
Uh, Partially probably being that I was in a residential treatment center and didn't know some of the basics of life, you know. Um, but I quickly discovered with, you know, U of A's prominent Greek life presence there, what it is and what it looked like. I decided to go through recruitment per my college freshman year roommates push towards me. I didn't really kind of hesitant at first, but I decided to sort of plunge in and just say, what do I got to lose? Fortunately, Kay took a chance on me. Again, very similarly, I didn't really think I deserved to belong. I didn't deserve that I was a good enough dude or human being to quote unquote make it into the organization or the recruitment process. So it started off with gratitude, like, hey, this organization's like pumped about me, like that hasn't really happened before. And I just ran with it. We started small. Over the course of those 4 years, we grew to one of the largest on campus. And I'm fortunate for Kay for a few reasons. One, we had a pretty authentic group in the beginning, a close knit community of guys who just wanted to enjoy each other's presence, learn from one another, push each other to be better. And it wasn't really that like stereotypical fraternity vibe that you often hear about in the news. It was much more like a family and sort of a cool little unity we had. So um, it, I'm just really appreciative for the organization top to down, for the friends that I made there. Um, they kind of cracked me out of the shell that old Greg was in. I'd say naturally I am more of a open extroverted person, but that 3 year depression sort of bottled me up into this shell that I never experienced before. And some of those experiences during those 3 years had really negative outcomes on my mental state and just the belief I had in myself. And keep in mind, joining KA was not that far removed from the treatment center experience. It was roughly 10 months. So in the span of 10 months, I was at a treatment center and then in a fraternity. So it was quite a vast change. Um, but yeah, just the authenticity, the brotherhood, the experiences. Like it was just such a neat opportunity to experience new things I've never had before, and just having ongoing friendship. Having many of them attend my wedding 2 years ago to my wife Vanessa was super special, and I'm just grateful for the organization as a whole.
That's a great testimonial for KA. I think that's a great testimonial for why fraternities are important on college campuses. And just like you, I had no concept of what a fraternity was coming into college. My parents were from another country. So
Hmm.
who was telling me about fraternities and sororities? Nobody.
Nobody. Yeah, exactly, man.
So I think that's also an important lesson for fraternity and sorority members, which is, typically, they're not going to come to you, the
Mhm.
fraternity has to make some outreach to you in some way because many people just don't know about these organizations. Either they don't care or they just don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously Kay did a fantastic job in recruiting you and making you feel important, and that really was your home, right? That was
Mhm.
your connection. So glad
Absolutely.
that things worked out. That's awesome.
Thank you. Me too.
Let's talk a little bit about your book, The Battle
Mhm.
Against Yourself. And you wrote this while you were in college, which I find to be so unique. I don't know of, a ton of students that are actually writing books as undergraduate students. So what did you learn about yourself during this process of writing the book?
A lot. It was not an easy process. Man, it took a lot of sacrifice. I mean, I just spending hours and hours and hours on the side of academics, friendships, exercise, go to sports games on campus, whatever it was, right? To just kind of grind and write this book. And I didn't really tell anybody. I just would go to the library, the campus library, go up to the top floor so as little people could see me as possible, and just crank out writing for 4 or 6 hours at a time. And I learned a couple things. One, accountability partners are critical in anything in life. I did have a mentor, and he's literally the only person that knew. My parents, my brother, people close to me didn't even know until it was in the publishing process. And his name was Adam. He was a mentor I found on campus. And I said, hey, man, I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know if this is just going to be a document that I hand to my grandkids one day in a Word doc form or PDF, or if it's going to be a published book you can buy on Amazon. But I need your accountability because I think this needs to happen. And he kept me accountable. And so that was critical. I understood the power of accountability. The other thing I learned about myself is that one or two things. One, healing is possible. Like healing and growth and progress, even from your darkest, most shameful, guilty times and feelings about yourself, is possible. That's one. And then secondly, I guess I learned that like when I personally identify a goal, a mission, a source that I want to achieve, it is hard to get me off track. I didn't really know about myself before that, but I sort of, this was a 26-month process: editing, writing, publishing, etc. And I kind of just went for it and did the best I could. So it's been really neat to see how it's been a tool in people's toolbox from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you to get that done while you're in college. I mean, I think it says a lot
Thank
about the kind
you.
of person that you are. And also, we should probably talk about your faith in God as well. I know that's
Yeah.
incredibly important to you, mostly from a man named Bobby, who you met on a plane, and then your wife, Vanessa, who you met 2 days later. And then you
Mm.
shared your curiosity in who God actually is with Vanessa. So I'm just wondering a little bit about those conversations that you had, maybe with Vanessa or with Bobby, and how those conversations and how those events have shaped your faith in God today.
Sure thing, and I appreciate you asking that. So just a little bit of background. My family didn't really, the importance of faith, the importance of God, religion, none of that was regularly practiced. It was basically limited to going to a local church on Easter, Christmas, whatever you want to call it, even, opening presents on Hanukkah, those type of things. Um, so God was never a focal point in my upbringing. Um, I went on a spring break trip when I was 22, and I was on a plane. To your point, from Tucson to LAX, sat down to this person named Bobby. We just kind of started chatting rather than putting my headphones in or reading a book, and that's the first time I ever heard the gospel, which is the good news that God has done for this world, for each and every person that exists, for me, for you, for every single person. And I had no clarity on what that looked like. And so as I was hearing this was like an hour and 20-minute conversation. I was like overwhelmed, like my head was spinning. I kind of understood some things, but I didn't really understand many. And to be honest, I was just like kind of freaked out, like, whoa, this is like super cool, but this is like a lot to digest. And Bobby actually offered his phone number and I declined it, because I was just like, you seem cool, but like I'm so overwhelmed, like, see you never again type of thing. And it's that one decision is one of my biggest regrets to this day. But nonetheless, that conversation, to your point, is uh, quite possibly the most important one I've ever had. 2 days later, I went on a little cruise, just spring break trip with some buddies, and I met this girl Vanessa, who was on the same cruise ship celebrating her 25th birthday, and that girl Vanessa is now my wife as of 2 years ago. And to your point, less than 48 hours after that, after having that conversation about God, about the Lord with Bobby, I had a very similar, if anything, more expansive conversation with Vanessa, 3, 4 hours, one night, and again, she just shared the good news of who God actually is, how His love is just relentless, and how He wants nothing more than an individual relationship with each and every person here on earth. And I took that again. I was like super overwhelmed. I'm like, this is wild. This is a lot. Like, I don't really know if like I want to like buy into this sort of thing. Like, is this religion? Is it like what is this, right? And at the end of the day, I just reached out. When I went back to Tucson to this person named John, who's more of an acquaintance. He was in my dorm, and now to this day is one of my best friends. And he uh, really just taught me more about what Vanessa and Bobby were talking about, and what faith looks like in commitment, in relationship with God. And so it is the single focal point to my life now. I 100% gave my life to the Lord, and it's just been beautiful to see um, how He keeps pursuing me and how He keeps pursuing those around me. And it's just all glory to him. It's been a wild journey because again, I kind of rejected God. I kind of really didn't believe this potentially phony thing, but it's quite the opposite. God's so real. God's never been more real, and I'm just grateful for each and every day. So
Wow, that's beautiful. First of all, if Bobby is listening to this right now on a podcast
I hope,
somewhere,
man. I
please,
hope.
please get in touch with Greg because I'm sure Greg would love to have a second conversation with you.
I hope, man.
And then why
Maybe,
didn't you play the lottery that week? I mean, all of these divine things were happening to you that week. That was your week. Go get a lottery ticket.
that was probably my one mistake, man. I mean, you go on a plane, you hear that. You go on a cruise ship, you hear that. Oh, and by the way, you come out with a future wife.
Yeah, I mean, wow,
You
what a
can't
week,
make it
man.
up.
No,
You can't make it up.
what a week. That's awesome. That is really good. And, so now we can bring it back to mental health, I feel, right? Because you're
Mhm.
talking about really positive relationships. So, what's the correlation between positive relationships in your life and mental health?
Yeah, sure thing. That's a key question. I think everyone at the core understands the importance of family and friends and such, but there's this researcher named Brene Brown. She's one of the world's best or most renowned researchers on vulnerability, courage, and shame. And she basically says at the core of cores, like at every single person's core, people aspire for three things: joy, connection, and belonging. And if you dissect connection and belonging, it's people. It's people. You long to connect with people. That's probably one of the reasons why I was so fired up about joining KA, because I felt like they wanted me and I belonged for once. So going back to positive relationships, that's what it's about. It's not having mass amount of followers on social media or posting 8 times per day. I mean, those things certainly can happen and that's fine. But it's about the people, the things that the world doesn't see, and the conversations that social media doesn't see, and the interpersonal relationships, positivity, trust, vulnerability within those in your circle, your spouse, family, friends, mentors, coaches, teachers, people like you, whatever it is, right? And there's just, at the end of the day, there's a direct correlation between healthy relationships and a strong mental health, personally. So I believe that, and I encourage each and every person listening to this to give yourself grace, because positive relationships are not easy to just like snap of a finger obtain, but most definitely aim for that over time.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world right now. A
Hmm.
recent survey by the Healthy Minds Network for Research on Adolescent and Young Adult Mental Health, also the American College Health Association, showed that 60% of college students say that this pandemic has made it harder for them to access mental health care, even as financial stresses and also this prevalence of depression has increased among them. So, where should college students be going right now to get the mental health care that they need?
Yeah, couple of different avenues I would suggest here. One, if it's more so of situational anxiety, stressors, I guess things that are quote unquote easier to be resolved. Start in your circle. Start with your family members that you trust, friends that you can be vulnerable with, so on and so forth. People that you can actually talk to, trust, and pour into, and that want to pour into you. That's one of the keys, is people that actually want to listen and invest advice and time into you. If that if that either does not work, or there's challenges with it, or there needs to be another step taken, then I would point, for college students out there, I'd point you in a couple different directions. One, maybe a little bias here, but I would first and foremost recommend Active Minds. I'm a speaker with Active Minds. I know the organization quite well. I know their morals and their programming and their goals, and they are known to be the leading nonprofit mental health organization in the United States for specifically awareness and education around mental health for college students, and specifically college students. There's an abundance of resources they have on their website. Check out activeminds.org. And there's just a lot of different programming, speakers, resources, articles, videos, trainings, etc. Another one is the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, nationally and regionally, depending on where you are. Again, look that one up. And then I guess the third one I'd say for, I guess you could say, heightened, more pressing situations, I would recommend calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Should you or someone you know have their lives in danger, or things are heightening on the mental health issue scale. I've met the executive director of that organization. He's a tremendous person. He's actually developing a 988 number instead of 911 to replace the actual suicide number, the 1-800 one. So there's just a lot of great things going there. So those are a few resources I'd point you in the direction in.
Very good advice. So students express high levels of concern about how long this pandemic is going to last. Nobody really
Mhm.
knows. About a quarter of students, let's call it 25%, say they are very or extremely concerned about contracting the virus.
Mhm.
Another 64% say they are very or extremely concerned about a person they care about contracting COVID-19. So, are there any ways that you would suggest that college students can reduce their anxiety about all of this uncertainty that's going on right now?
Man, it's a tough ball game, tough world we're living in right now. I mean, it's something that none of us have ever could have, one, predicted, and two, definitely none of us, or none of not something any of us have lived through. So, first of all, I get your struggle, I get your frustration, your worry. It all makes sense. It's valid. It's pressing times right now. Um, I guess to put it simply, control what you can control and release what you need to release. Let go of the uncontrollable, the things that just put a wrench in your stomach. Let go of that, because there's only so much we can do. There's only so much we can control. But it's just more so being wise about the things we can control. Wearing a mask, trying to adjust the best of your abilities with your college programming. Transitioning from the in person to the virtual world. Continuing to build a ongoing commitment to your friendships, even though you may not necessarily be in your dorms or in your fraternity sorority houses or apartments, etc. Just being intentional with that. Um, but yeah, I just say, you know what, this as long as this has lasted already, and let's be honest, it's going to last for a while longer.
Mhm.
Um, the current state we're in, the current day to day, isn't going to be permanent for us. We're not going to be dealing with this in 6 years or whatever. As far as like, hey, you can't even like live in your dorm, hey, you can't even go to class, like those things will shift. So be patient, be intentional, um, adjust how you need to adjust, and also give yourself grace. But yeah, focus on being proactive on the things you can control and just sort of letting go of the things you can't, because if you don't, those things will drive you crazy, trust me.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know for me personally, ever since I've been in quarantine and just kind of sticking around to the house and not
Yeah.
going out unless I really need to. I'll tell you, I started meditation with some of these apps that they have on
Yeah.
phones like about 6 months ago. I'm telling you, it changed my world, man.
Game changing. Headspace,
Yeah,
Calm, all that good stuff.
those are really, really good options. So I think if college students want to check out Headspace or Calm or any of those that are out there, there's a bunch that are really good. I mean,
Yeah.
that'll really make a difference. If you've never done it, I would just say try it. You've got nothing
Mhm.
to lose. Just try it.
Sure thing. I agree. It's pretty simple. It takes 10, 15 minutes of your day, and it can really start your day off on the right note. And I think they even have discounted options right now. So some cool resources there for sure.
Yeah, I really like that stuff. All right, so let's see. So, what do you say if we see that a friend in college, maybe a fraternity brother or a sorority sister, let's say that we see signs of mental distress in one of these people in our circle? So, what are three practical actions we can take in order to help them?
It's funny you say three, because I have sort of an acronym that is literally three steps. And I am certainly not going to take credit because this was developed by active minds, but I will use it for the sake of helping those listening to this podcast. And I'm going to share it. It's called VAR. literally just VAR, and that's validate, appreciate, refer. And so when you're in conversation, when you're put into a place where instead of maybe you needing the help, maybe you're in the position where you're the helper. You're being sought out by your buddy, by an acquaintance, by a fraternity or sorority member, by a classmate, and say, hey, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. I need to talk to you. First of all, one, those could be definitely unexpected and catch us off guard. So it's important to be prepared. But two, uh, don't think of it as impossible or rocket science. You can certainly um, be of tremendous use because you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be there. You need to be present for that person. You need to show up for that person. So VAR is validate, appreciate, refer. And I would suggest that tool in your toolbox. Validate looks like, hey, I understand, the struggle that you're going through, or, I appreciate you sharing that with me. You're the challenge you're going through is very real. Those type of things, acknowledging the struggle and the circumstances before you provide advice. Being a listener rather than a speaker. Appreciate courage. That's appreciating courage is the second bucket there, because it takes vulnerability, courage, and intentionality for somebody to say, "Hey, I need you right now. I need to talk to you. I need a vent. I need something to just. I need somebody to be there." And so, understanding the courage that they just enacted is a beautiful thing. So definitely appreciate that, encourage that, and reassure that you are there for them uh, during the challenges. And then refer. R is refer to skills and support. And this is probably the most important point in my opinion, because there's going to be essentially two options. One, you'll be able to do what you can in that situation, and maybe the challenges will get resolved. Maybe all that person was needing was a conversation, a vent space, somebody to talk to. But other times it's going to take more pressing um, pressing steps. And maybe you aren't necessarily the expert or a person they need long term or moving forward. And that's where it comes into referring to skills and support. Maybe it's a friend or a family member that has a deeper sense of understanding on what the challenges are and how to relate. Or maybe it's a counselor on campus, a teacher that person is close to. Um, maybe it's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, those type of things. Um, but I would say, having the lens, the framework of VAR ready to go when you're asked to assist in something with somebody could do you great measures in those conversations.
Perfect advice. Really, really perfect for college students. That's fantastic. So I've just loved this conversation. This is really good.
Likewise, man.
And so, obviously we met for lunch a couple of years ago there in Costa Mesa. You know that I love good food. I mean, I'm
Yes, you
searching
do.
like the whole earth for good food. So now you're in Sacramento. So what restaurant do I need to check out the next time I land in Sacramento?
Man, that's might be the toughest question of the day. Seriously, we moved here exactly 12 months ago. Absolutely love it. And that's one thing we've done really, really good at is trying all kinds of places. We've gotten around. Um, I'll give it to you like this. From a food standpoint, um, there's this place called Basha, a taste from Jerusalem. And it's like this little hole in the wall type of place, but it's all this, it's made, all the food is made from Jerusalem, in Jerusalem, by this family, and is every single thing on the menu is the grandma's recipes of the owners. So from a food standpoint, it's literally unbeatable. But from a that's like kind of off the grid a little bit, hole in the wall, but from a, like, I guess you could say must do, I'd probably point you to Rio City Cafe. It's literally on the American River, on the river bend. You overlook the river. The servers there are just tremendous, really, really personable, and the food is high quality. Jambalaya, steak, good seafood. So Rio City Cafe is a nice vibe for ambiance, good service, and good food.
I love the seafood. That's great. But as soon as you started talking about Jerusalem, I started having memories of all of my trips to Jerusalem. And now I'm hooked. And you better believe I'm going to go check out this place in Sacramento because it's going to be a lot easier for me to get there than it is to be Jerusalem right
Man,
now.
you got a place to stay while you're out here too, man. So a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, that is really, really good. I tell you, have you ever been to Jerusalem yet?
I have not, but
Oh
it's
my
on my
gosh.
wife and I's list.
I mean, let me tell you, if you want to feel spiritual, if you want to feel close to God, when you walk those streets and
Mhm.
you know you're walking the same streets as Jesus Christ himself,
Literally.
there you feel close to God and you will feel spiritual. And yes, the
Mhm.
food is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, everything you read in the scriptures is like at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
I mean,
pretty
yeah, there's just
unbelievable.
no substitute because you'll be able to see historical things that no matter what your religion is, right? I happen to be Israeli and Jewish, but you know, whether you are Christian or you are Muslim or whatever
Mhm.
you are, you will find important artifacts that you will never see outside of Jerusalem. And it's important to understand the history and how literally these religions were building one on top of the other, and you can actually see it in the excavations. So it's just a phenomenal place to go. I'd highly recommend it. And since you mentioned the food, you'll be happy there as well from a food standpoint. I promise
Um,
you that.
Amazing. How many times have you been?
Oh my gosh. So when I was a kid, I was going there probably every summer, but I
Wow.
haven't been back in a while. My father was an archaeologist out there in Israel,
Oh, wow.
and he was the one who was the archaeologist at a very famous site in Israel called Masada. We could do a whole podcast on Masada itself because it's an
Wow.
incredible story. You just have to read books and read more about Masada. But he was one of the archaeologists there, so he was able to take us there not too long ago with my family and with my children, and actually show the work that he did as an archaeologist on the site. And that was really cool for him. And then it was really cool for me to see my father teaching my children, right? So very, very, very cool and
That's
unique
awesome.
experience. But if you ever need a tour guide, call my dad because he knows all those places better than anybody that lives
Sounds like a plan, man. That's incredible for sure. That's so
That's
cool.
great. That's really great. All right. So this has been a lot of fun. If our audience wants to ask you questions, maybe they want to follow you on social media, what's the best place for all of our listeners to reach you?
You know, I'm available pretty much everywhere, all on all the main social networks. But I guess you could say the primary one, just Instagram. That works. Uh, Tag is at Greg underscore Vogt 8. So that's GREG underscore. My last name is Vogt, VOGT, the number 8.
Very good.
So I expect some messages. I'm a pretty open book, and I'm looking forward to sort of building a relationship with you all and supporting on your college campuses for sure.
That's awesome. You're going to get a ton of messages from this. So be prepared for the flood as soon as this interview goes live. But listen, man, I just appreciate you having you on the team. You're just a special guy. I knew that from the moment that I met you. I'm glad that you were patient with me. And 2 years later, that we can now rock and roll and do all those cool things that we were talking about doing. So this is going to be a lot of fun, man.
You're the man, Mike. I appreciate you having me on board. I'm excited to get the ball rolling and appreciate your time today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Excellent. And listen, if anybody here listening thought this was a good interview and you want to share this, by all means, like and share this interview with others. And we look forward to seeing you on the next interview here at Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.